Hi guys. All right. Well, thank you. Thanks everyone for being here. Thanks, Matt. And yeah, welcome to the final afternoon of Brand Innovators. What are we calling you? Upfronts. My name is Chris Reinhard. I'm SVP at Motive, which is an integrated marketing agency. We are lucky enough to have worked with PepsiCo for about 17 years now. So I feel especially grateful to be able to sit next to Stacy, who is a collaborator and partner of our agency for many, many years. So, and I also have to say, I'd like to throw this in there, when I talk about PepsiCo, my loyalty personally runs very, very deep. My father worked for PepsiCo for 30 years, or 35 years, and I still to this day, at 39 years old, have not had any liquid from the red can, except for one time in middle school when a friend tried to trick me by switching it out. We are no longer speaking. Really, really proud to be here. Stacy, so glad to have you. I think we should start by having you talk a little bit about your journey, your career at PepsiCo, and what got you here.
Yeah, thank you. So I've been 16 years with PepsiCo, and I know you're all thinking, there's no way she's old enough to have been with PepsiCo 16 years. Truly I am. Yeah, it's been an amazing journey. So I've had the pleasure to work on a ton of different brands and businesses while I've been at the company, including brand Pepsi, Lay's, Doritos, Cheetos, Bubbly, Ruffles, where Chris and I work together, and I think some really amazing work. And I would say I would categorize the work that I've done and that we do in marketing at PepsiCo in a couple of different big sort of objectives. The first is it's really important that we're solving business problems with creative excellence. So it's left brain, right brain. We don't do anything that is not actually solving a business problem and leading to growth. So that's the first thing we're really focused on. The second is expanding our categories and our brands. So as we think about innovation, as we think about new occasions, it's all about expansion and bringing new people into our categories and our world. And then the last thing is really future-proofing the brands that we have and making sure they're ready for the next generation of demand. So we'll think about the journey that we're on with sustainability and with sugar reduction, with our ingredients. It's really about making sure that we have the right portfolio for every consumer when they're thirsty or hungry.
Cool. So you are no stranger to this weekend. You have been here for the Super Bowl many, many times throughout your career. I think share a couple highlights from the past, and that'll kind of take us into what we're doing here this weekend.
Yeah, so yes, I've done a lot of Super Bowls, and I'm still waiting for my beloved and pathetic New York Jets to make it. So one of these days, hopefully, I will be able to see my team in the Super Bowl. But what a dream. I mean, what a privilege to be able to work and be involved in advertising's biggest stage. It's part of what drew me to PepsiCo originally. Part of what brought me to marketing is to do really big things that have a big impact. And this is certainly one of those things. So my experience started with Pepsi, maybe almost a decade ago, when I worked on brand Pepsi and we had the halftime show. And so I was involved in, my first one was Lady Gaga, hopefully people remember that one. I then had Justin Timberlake, and we really started thinking about in those years how we make more of the halftime show than just a sponsorship and a logo slap. Most people we found out when we would ask who's the sponsor of the halftime show, they would have said it was Pepsi, even when it was Break Zone, because it was just a different way of activating. So we started doing behind the scenes content series. We started engaging fans. So with Gaga, we did a huge program to bring her little monsters onto the field during halftime and really engage the fans. And so we got a lot more out of the halftime show than any sponsor had done before. It was a tremendous platform for us. Beyond that, I've done a number of ads as well, or campaigns, I should say. And really, we use the Super Bowl platform for a couple of different things. First is to really amplify something new to the market. So not necessarily a brand new innovation, but a brand that has a lot of runway for growth. It's a shortcut to amplify, to be able to get a lot of eyeballs, a lot of awareness, a lot of trial. So when I worked on the Bubbly brand, I don't know if anyone remembers Bubbly Bublé from a couple of years ago. That was an opportunity. That campaign was not coincidental. It was to get people to know the name of the brand, which they did, and it really accelerated awareness. So that was an example of an innovation. The second kind of category of what we use Super Bowl for, and what I've used Super Bowl for, is when there's a new, when we want to change perception about a brand or make a strategic shift in a brand. So a couple of years ago, I was working on Flamin' Hot, and spicy snacks, if you don't know, is everywhere and a huge segment in the category. And we had this like wonderful jewel of a flavor in Flamin' Hot on a few of our brands, including Cheetos, but it wasn't a brand, it was just a flavor. And so the challenge was, let's use Super Bowl to really introduce the Flamin' Hot lifestyle to the masses and build on a campaign. So we did the Push It campaign. If you remember the sloth eating the Flamin' Hot Cheetos. And that really set that business up for tremendous growth coming out of that. And then brand campaigns. We have a new idea that we want to launch. So another one that I'm really proud of is the Lay's Stay Golden campaign with Seth Rogen and Paul Rudd from a few years ago. And again, really introducing a brand that had been around a long time but didn't have a lot of meaning back into the masses has been was something that really worked as well. So a lot of experience, and excited to be here.
Yeah, cool. Can we talk a little bit how your role has changed? I wrote down all of the different things that you're responsible for. Now, media, innovation, partnerships, and what has been listed as all manner of other marketing functions. I think it would be great for you to just expand a little bit on the role you've stepped into in the last several months and give us a sense of how that sets the stage for Super Bowl 24.
Yeah, so within our marketing department, we have teams that are focused on driving the brands and the business every single day. I see Jenny Danzy, my colleague in the audience, who is running Grand Pepsi, part of running Grand Pepsi, and she's doing an amazing job. But it means that we like to have people that are dedicated on thinking about how we really transform for the future and how we set the portfolio up to be successful for the next 10-year horizon. And so my team is responsible for a lot of the functions we talked about: innovation, media, content, all of our portfolio marketing, a number of different functions, but also how we transform those pieces of our business so that we're ready for the future. So, what is marketing 2.0? How do we really push the envelope in media? How do we stand up capabilities in creative and content that we didn't have before? So we're really focused on that, building capabilities, transforming, and getting our portfolio ready for the next generation of demand.
Awesome. So obviously here today, based on the title of this Fireside chat, we are going to focus pretty heavily on innovation. And I think one of the things we've talked a little bit about is this idea that there are different methodologies, different models of innovation, and when it comes to the Super Bowl and that idea of amplifying an innovation in a really kind of powerful, direct, purposeful way, tell us a little bit about some of those different models that you guys have employed, and then we'll talk about both the brands that are getting the shine this year.
Yeah, of course. So, we don't just launch a new thing and decide to put it on the Super Bowl with no context. We're very responsible and disciplined about how we use the Super Bowl platform. But when an innovation or a proposition is proven and we know that it's the right thing for the consumer, and I'll get into how we know that, then Super Bowl or any other big platform is a great way to accelerate adoption. So awareness and trial, for those that have the privilege of being able to be on Super Bowl, great, it's great. If you're on a smaller brand, there's other ways to really amplify, your brand to drive awareness and trial. But the way that we kind of get ready is through incubation and experimentation. And sometimes we do both of those things together. Sometimes we do one or the other. But the incubation model is let's put something out there with a customer in a region, in a market, in a channel, and learn. Right, so I'm going to talk a little bit later about Baja Blast, but this is the 20th anniversary actually of that brand, and it's the first time it's going to be available everywhere. 20 years. So that was an incubation with Taco Bell. Again, I'll talk a little bit more about that, but that's a way that we really build demand, we get people excited for something, and then we unleash it to the masses. The other way is experimentation. So there are categories that we've been wanting to play in for a very long time. I'll use sparkling water as an example. Before bubbly, there was Aquafina Sparkling the first time. Then there was Aquafina Sparkling the second time. And I kid you not, there was Aquafina Sparkling the third time. And each time we tried it a different way, hoping that we didn't have to launch a new brand to the world, because it's very expensive to launch a new brand. But we learned that, hey, actually sparkling water operates a lot more like a soda than it does a water. And so using a water brand to come into that category was just not working. So we learned that. We learned a lot of things from the 3 times on Aquafina. We learned about the packages. We learned about the number of cans, the types of flavors, the amount of flavors, even like the retailer margin and what part of the store. All of that we learned so that when we brought Bubbly and we saw in the first 12 weeks that it was working, like, this is it, we're in, put it on the Super Bowl, get everybody there. So, incubation, experimentation, is a way that we think about it.
Well, and again, I'll just keep saying this because obviously everybody knows the stakes of Super Bowl weekend. 100 million people, 120 million people at times tuning in, highly attentive audience. And when you are talking about an innovation that probably doesn't have 95% household penetration like a brand Pepsi does, you're walking into a potentially, difficult or learning type scenario, and it's really pretty brave and daring for you guys to be able to go, we're still going to go and put this innovation on the center stage basically for the entire world. And I do want to jump into a little bit of these 2 brands. So they live on almost polar opposite sides of the innovation spectrum. And I think we'll talk about Baja Blast first. Like you mentioned, it's been around for 20 years, but it's still considered an innovation in a lot of ways because the way that it was born out of a food service partner and the growth that it's seen from a cultural perspective is so unique. And now the innovation really rests on where it's being distributed and what that looks like. So how are you guys setting the stage for Baja Blast this year?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, as I said, so we launched Baja Blast with Taco Bell 20 years ago, and it has been building a bit of a cult following and a demand. And I would say, I don't know the number, I think it was 8 years ago or ish, we decided to test the waters and bring it into the retail environment, but just for a limited time. So for the past several years, we brought it in over the summer, and people literally bring trucks to fill a back of a truck with Baja Blast. That's how much latent demand there is for this. And it is the #1 LTO of all time. So that's like in any category, bigger than the McRib, like this, it's enormous. And so we said, hey, it's the 20th anniversary, and we did this all in partnership with Taco Bell, by the way, who is a very, very close, important strategic partner. And we agreed, hey, it's time to bring this all year and have a really big celebration of what this brand is. It's an incredible, unique flavor. If you haven't had a Baja Blast, zero or regular, I highly recommend it. It might change your life. It's just outstanding. And so, we decided to bring it all year round and to use the Super Bowl for the stage. Mountain Dew is a brand that's had a lot of success on the Super Bowl. People look forward to Mountain Dew. I would say Mountain Dew and Doritos are 2 of ours that people just look forward to what's going to be the Super Bowl at every year. And so we've had, a history of doing some really interesting things on Mountain Dew, and so this felt like the right time. And the way that it's coming to life, just a very, very simple idea, in a tongue-in-cheek way of what it means to have a blast, I think is going to really land.
And then on the other side of the spectrum, there's Starry, which is a brand that it's relatively new by comparison. It's in its 2nd year. And I know you guys had some really, really great data on its growth and have wonderful high hopes for it. But I think before we start talking about Starry, it's really interesting to talk about how you got to Starry. So if you don't mind.
Yeah. Has anybody heard of Slice or Storm or Sierra Mist? Those were all ours. So I would put lemon lime in the same category as sparkling water, where we've tried a lot of different things. And it's a really big, important category, and we just didn't have it right before. And so rather than stick with something that is not ideal and it's not right for the consumer, we said, hey, we're going to keep at it, and we're going to try different things until we get something that's really working. So what's awesome about Starry is, we had a real focus on Gen Z. And the reason for that was because people do come into the soda category through lemon lime. It's used very young, it's a little bit more permissible, it doesn't have caffeine, and all those past times we were not focused on that young cohort, and it didn't work with them as much. So we're really, really focused on Gen Z, and we got the product right. So some of you may say, it all tastes the same. Nope, it actually doesn't. and Starry is really an advantage product in the market, an advantage to anything we've done before. So in the first year, Starry was $750 million in sales. Enormous. The second fastest growing brand that was introduced last year, second to only ChatGPT, like in any category. And what's cool is it's that size and it only has 40% awareness. So only less than half of the households have even heard of what Starry is. So that's a signal to us that says Super Bowl is a great platform because when people are aware of this thing and they try it, also repeats really high. So when people are aware of this, when people try it, it works and they switch from whatever they're drinking and they stay in Starry, which makes it a great candidate for Super Bowl because once you have 100 million eyeballs on it, we know that awareness is going to go right through the roof. So we're staying from a creative standpoint and from a branding standpoint, we're staying really authentic to that Gen Z target. It's not, it is, the brand is for everyone, but it is designed for this particular target. So you'll see, even though we put the brand on really big stages, Super Bowl, NBA, the creative and the way it comes to life is going to be very authentic to a young consumer.
And only because I see somebody from the Doritos brand team in the audience now. Can we also talk about Doritos Dinamita?
Would you like to talk about Doritos Dinamita? I mentioned spicy snacks, and it's just incredible to me how people can light their mouths on fire and actually think it's a fun thing. The nice thing is they really need a Starry or a Baja Blast once they've had these spicy snacks. But we've had a great brand as part of Doritos called Dinamita for a while. It's an advantage product to anything out there. It's got incredible crunch, incredible spice and flavor. And it's been a big business by most standards, but not as big as we think it could be. And part of that is just that we haven't focused on it, and we haven't really introduced the brand to the world. And so this is the year. Again, like Mountain Dew, Doritos is a brand that people look forward to seeing what's happening on the Super Bowl every year. And so this is the year where we're going to introduce the world to what is the best spicy snack on the planet in a number of flavors, and I think in a really creatively brilliant and beautiful way. So very, very excited to see Dinamita. And by the way, if you all haven't seen the giant Dorito on the Luxor, that's pretty cool too.
If you haven't seen it, it's time to go outside. Cool. Well, that actually takes us basically to the end of all of my note cards. But I do think first and foremost, thank you so much, Stacy. I think this is great. It's amazing to think about innovation in a bunch of different ways and to be able to trace back a pretty amazing history that PepsiCo has of bringing innovation to light here at the Super Bowl. Again, I'll say it one more time. I think it's daring. I think it's brave. I think it's been really amazing to watch it be successful. But before we kind of jump off the stage, anything you want to leave this group with today that...
Yeah, I would just say a couple things. So one around Super Bowl, I think it's such an awesome platform, and what is so great about it, and maybe the lesson in this, is finding, opportunities that match when people are authentically consuming or having your categories or products with an opportunity to reach a lot of people is a great sweet spot. And for us, Super Bowl is perfect for that because it is such an important consumption moment. So I don't know if you know this, is I think really interesting, but more than 60% of households will be consuming something made by PepsiCo this weekend. 60%. It's a lot of people. So we're authentically in the conversation, which just makes it that much more credible, I think, when we're surrounding the consumer. So I just think, thinking about that moment where your product makes sense, and therefore where there's a lot, and also where there's a lot of eyeballs, really good place for investment. And then the second thing I'd say about innovation, nobody gets innovation right, even most of the time. It's usually wrong because it requires learning, it requires iteration, it requires experimentation. And if we can do it on businesses that are as large as ours, I think it's a really good lesson for most businesses that keep trying, get it right. Don't be satisfied until you have the right proposition for the consumer, and then figure out how to scale them. But keep experimenting, keep incubating, keep trying until you get that thing right. Even if it's very public, like we've failed in some of our categories before.
Another brave thing to say. All right, guys, thank you very much. Stacy, thank you, and enjoy the weekend.